With one of the best years of JRPGs coming to an end, sometimes it's nice to take a step back and just look at some of the past games. We've put together a list of the best JRPGs from 2023 that you should still play going into 2025, so check it out.
Hey, this is Sean from Gamer Braves. It's been 8 years since we established Gamer Braves channel. We went to a lot of overseas game conference. We did a lot of exclusive interview with a lot of prominent figures from the industry, Ryuzo Sugimoto, Sean Layden, and even Yagu. One of the easiest way to support us is to subscribe to our channel. Support like this will actually gives us motivation and pushes us to produce better content. If you have already subscribed, thank you so much. Please enjoy the rest of the video.
As with many Fate stories, a Holy Grail war has broken out once again, but this time in the Edo period of Japan, and it's called the Waxing Moon Ritual. As usual, there are 7 masters summoning their servants of different classes, and meanwhile, you are Miyamoto Iori, the adopted son of Miyamoto Musashi, as well as the master of the Saber class. Thankfully, Fate Samurai Remnant is a standalone game, so you don't need any prior Fate knowledge. Though if you happen to be a fan, then you'll recognize some familiar servants, that of which we won't mention to not spoil the surprise. Combat is a hack and slash, with Iori making use of 5 different stances, such as Fire, Water, Earth, Wind, and Void, giving each stance its own role. Additionally, you're not just locked to Saber, you'll eventually be able to try out different servants, for reasons. You could technically draw some parallels to the Dynasty Warrior series, which is also made by the same developers, except on a smaller scale and set in Japan. The environments and designs greatly complement the world of this Edo period, especially in the anime style of Fate. It even has a few daily life things to take part in to immerse yourself in the world. Overall, Fate Samurai Remnant is a solid action JRPG, and another great collection to the various Fate games we've had so far. It's currently out on the PS4, PS5, PC, and Switch, and there's even an anime adaptation of this game. CRYMACHINA starts off with the extinction of humanity. Yeah, great start. But thankfully, a last-ditch effort by humans has stored a bunch of human personality data, in hopes of restoring humanity in some way in the future. And that's where we meet our 8 main androids who've been injected with human personalities to bring them to life. But being injected with artificial feelings, they start to question their existence and what it means to be a real human. In terms of combat, every character has a primary weapon as well as different iterations of that weapon, so it's something like an equipment set that will give you a bonus if paired together. Aside from your main weapon, you have a secondary shoulder weapon that adds even more customizations for abilities and skills, and all of this will contribute to pulling off some insane combos. Overall, CRYMACHINA is an incredibly aesthetic game with flashy and in-depth combat and lots to experiment with, while at the same time hiding a psychological story beneath its charms. It is currently out on the PS4, PS5, PC, and Switch. Super Mario RPG from 1996 got an incredibly faithful 3D remake, and it is an interesting blend of RPG elements with the Mario franchise, which is usually known for its platforming gameplay. As usual, the plot of these games are pretty straightforward, with Mario saving Princess Peach from Bowser. Unlike a lot of Mario games, Super Mario RPG has turn-based battles instead. That's pretty simple yet engaging. Timing your attacks perfectly allows your characters to receive less damage or deal more damage by attacking all enemies. Every successful action will fill up a gauge, and when full, allows all 3 characters to deal massive damage, that of which will change depending on who's in your party. Additionally, there's a breezy difficulty setting that just lets you enjoy the game stress-free. Along with the light-hearted story and charming presentation, the Super Mario RPG remake will certainly bring a lot of people back into the past for a chill gaming session. It's currently available on the Nintendo Switch. As the Yakuza series transforms into the Like a Dragon series, we still got a game called Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, surrounding the lovable Yakuza protagonist Tamedane Man. Kazuma Kiryu. Or should I say Joryu, because the once legendary Yakuza faked his death and abandoned his name to protect his family, hence why it's called The Man Who Erased His Name. But the problem is, there's a mysterious figure attempting to bring Joryu out of hiding. Despite having Like a Dragon in its name, it returns to the good old beat-em-up style of combat from Yakuza. In the Yakuza style, he unleashes his raw strength, almost as if he's like a dragon, while the agent style dresses him up in a black suit instead of his regular white one, and he uses various gadgets to attack in a larger area. Of course, the best parts of this franchise is the goofy daily life stuff that you can take part in, like karaoke, pocket racing, or mahjong, and so many more silly stuff this series is known for, and yes, he's a grown adult. Overall, Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name is an incredible beat-em-up JRPG that provides some nice context for Kiryu after the events of Yakuza 6, and acts as a nice transition for the newer Like a Dragon games. It's currently out on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Once again, the Yakuza series gets another spin-off, and Like a Dragon Ishin was first released in 2014, but now we've gotten a remake of it which brings a decent amount of changes. For one, the cast has changed, so we get to see the lovable Yakuza cast get thrown back to the 1860s era, where you, as Kazuma Kiryu, Sakamoto Ryoma, will bring an end to the samurai era and forever change the future of Japan. Despite having Like a Dragon in its name, it still retains the Yakuza beat-em-up style of combat. You can take up a few styles of combat. You can fight barehanded with the brawler, wield a katana with the swordsman, use a revolver as the gunman, or even both as the wild dancer. As per tradition, Yakuza games will always have a bunch of goofy minigames, and Ishin is no different, other than the fact that the minigames are from the 19th century. Overall, Like a Dragon Ishin is another interesting spin-off involving the cast we're all familiar with. It's currently out on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Atelier Ryza played a huge part in bringing the Atelier series under the spotlight of so many people, and it has gotten its final game in the trilogy called Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End, and the Secret Key. Ryza 3 continues the story from Ryza 2 and 1, but Ryza herself is a bit washed after the events of Ryza 2, and just spends her time lazing around. However, a bunch of strange islands start appearing in their homeland, and that motivates her to continue her life as an alchemist once more. In terms of combat, it takes on a real-time action combat where turns take effect in real time, though it's not a full-blown action game, so you can still take your time. Outside of the combat, you'll be spending a lot of your time gathering materials and performing alchemy. Ryza has a nice minigame for its synthesis mechanic, where you have to fill a recipe tree of a bunch of resources to make the best version of it, like having the highest quality or desired traits and unlocking more recipes. And you can easily find yourself just laying back and messing with the synthesis system for hours. While it's possible to play Ryza 3 first, you'll better understand the bonds between you and your companions if you played the first two games first, so it's highly recommended to do so you can witness the group's journey. It is currently out on the PS4, PS5, PC, and Switch. The very first Atelier game to come out in 1997 has been fully remade, and it's called Atelier Mary, the Alchemist of Salburg. The story is simple and straightforward to follow. Marie is studying alchemy at the Royal Academy of Magic. One day, her professor grants her an atelier as part of the graduation exam, and Marie must produce an item that will impress her professor to pass. But she has to work on her alchemy skills first, because she literally has the worst grades in the academy due to her laid-back and carefree attitude, which I think some of us can relate to. So you'll be spending your time gathering resources and taking part in some casual turn-based combat, because these monsters drop useful resources as well. Meanwhile, you can take on some side quests, that of which have pretty generous deadlines, so there's no pressure to prioritize your tasks here and there. Like even the main graduation exam has a deadline of 5 whole years. With all these resources, it's time to work on synthesis, which is where you'll be spending a good chunk of your time trying out all the different types of combinations and resources and recipes and so on. Combined with the adorable presentation and soundtrack, the Atelier Marie remake is an incredibly chill game that you can just take your time with. It is currently out on the PS4, PS5, PC, and Switch. If you played games at all, you've definitely heard of the name Zelda, for the wrong reasons as well. No, Zelda is not the player's name, that's the person you're trying to save. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel to the previous Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, and you, as Link, got a replacement arm that grants him a bunch of unique abilities. The massive open world is literally your canvas, and it challenges you to come up with some creative solutions. For a combat example, you can use gravity to your advantage, launch a rock at absurd speeds, and so many more. Like, the sky is basically the limit. Well, not really. You can also make a rocket, a car, a hovercraft, and whatever abomination you can think of to explore the world and solve various puzzles. Or if you're the if it works kind of guy, then yeah, that works too. Overall, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom continues the strong legacy of what we've seen in Breath of the Wild, as well as the Zelda series overall, and it is available on a Nintendo Switch as of 2023. Wolong Fallen Dynasty is a retelling of the Three Kingdoms saga, with its own twists, though Wolong is not a Musou hack-and-slash type of game, unlike another certain series, and instead follows something similar to Nioh, which is literally made by the same developers. Combat-wise, a lot of comparisons will be made with Souls-likes, but Wolong has its own twist with something called the Spirit Bar, which is your resource for doing basically anything. You are rewarded for striking hits and deflecting attacks, yet punished for taking damage, and at the same time, the enemy has their own Spirit Bar as well, so it makes things very fair and balanced. Aside from the basic attacks, there is a vast variety of weapons for you to use, so you'll spend a lot of time mastering them. Additionally, there's martial arts and wizardry spells, which are powerful spirit-eating abilities that should be used according to the Spirit Bar. Overall, Wolong is an incredibly exciting and satisfying action JRPG that heavily rewards aggressive combat that makes you feel like a badass, while at the same time using the spirit gauge as a way to mix up the combat. Wolong is currently on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. If it wasn't obvious from the name, Persona 5 Tactica is one of Atlus's twists on Persona 5's turn-based mechanics, transforming Persona 5 into a tactical JRPG. The thing is, you don't need to play Persona 5 beforehand, although it is recommended. The story in Tactica is a slight divergence from the main Persona 5 story, taking place during the events of Persona 5, but ultimately not having a huge impact on the overarching story. Here, you will follow the Phantom Thieves and get transported to another world. As you can expect, this is Persona 5 as a tactical JRPG, with all the various mechanics from the actual Persona 5 game still present, as well as the charming UI and presentation of the game. Battle takes place on a grid, with a bunch of objects to use as cover. There's also various terrain gimmicks you'll have to take into account, like varying heights and obstructions. They can be a hindrance to you, or you can take advantage of them, like for example, pushing enemies into different places. Every skill you use has a range that is shown on the grid, including every attack you encounter, so lining up shots on multiple enemies feels really satisfying, especially if you make use of this triple threat attack. You can activate the triple threat attack if all 3 members of your squad surround the enemy, as if cornering them, and it will deal massive damage that really rewards your thoughtful planning and positioning. Of course, it's not a Persona game without the personas themselves, that of which will grant you various skills that have various affinities to deal effective damage. Overall, Persona 5 Tactica is a nice spin-off by Atlus, letting tactical and strategy combat enjoyers still have a taste of Persona if they prefer it over the turn-based combat. It is currently available on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and Switch. With such an influential name like Fire Emblem behind its title, you know that this one will absolutely live up to the series' name. Fire Emblem Engage is the latest game in the Fire Emblem series, coming after Fire Emblem Three Houses, which focused more on storytelling of 3 factions and incorporated more daily life and social aspects to the game. As for Engage, it is more focused on the tactical and strategic side of combat, which is what the Fire Emblem series is known for. Like how Fire Emblem started, the combat in Engage takes place on a grid. Following the name of the title is the game's main gimmick, which are these emblem rings that you can put on any character and lets them be engaged. No, not marriage. So these emblem rings will raise their stats and give them more skills to use. And additionally, these characters with the rings can become engaged, where you fuse your character and the emblem into one, which is almost like a reflection of their personality and powers. They will be able to use special engage weapons and engage skills to unleash strong engage attacks. So as an example for the engage skills, you'll be able to move on more grids, which as you can imagine is huge for grid-based tactical combat. Besides that, there are skills where you can target more than one enemy, or teleport, or manipulate the terrain, buff allies and give them more turns, and many more. You can't use this all the time though, as this engage status only lasts for a short amount of time, and you'll have to build it up again. All of these emblem rings can be equipped on every single character, so there's a lot of experimentation for you to do. Overall, the combat in Fire Emblem Engage opens up a ton of unique strategies, especially with the emblems and engage mechanics. So whether you're a veteran or newcomer to Fire Emblem, this is a great addition to the tactical combat formula. Fire Emblem Engage is currently released on the Nintendo Switch. Star Ocean: The Second Story R, or Remake, has been completely remade in a new light. The most obvious change will be the modern graphic style that we've recently seen with certain remakes and remasters of very old games, and this is another one of them. The graphics are absolutely stunning, bringing life to this old and outdated pixel world with 3D environments, realistic lighting, and a mix of good old pixel art, letting us see a version of the world like never before. The combat takes place in a 2.5D perspective. You can choose between Claude, who is able to string combos together aggressively, and Rena, who focuses on using more spells from the backline instead. While the combat looks a bit mutton mashy, a lot of skill and strategy is required as well, like for example using specific skills for specific use cases, and even dodging at the perfect time to avoid damage, but whiffing it will turn it into a disadvantage for you, so it can be quite punishing as well. Overall, Star Ocean: The Second Story Remake is a very fast-paced and satisfying action JRPG. The combat heavily rewards pulling off some insane strings of combos with various skills and abilities to shift things into your favor, while still being able to punish you for not paying attention. It's out on the PS4, PS5, PC, and Switch. And as we were just talking about Story of Seasons, let's check out the latest original entry in the series called Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. This one is a remake of Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life, which came out all the way back in 2003. Of course, the graphics have been revamped to modern standards while still keeping that drawing book style charm to it. As mentioned in the Doraemon version, this game also has a lot of daily life activities to take part in, with the main one being farming, taking care of animals and pets, cooking, fishing, doing requests, attending seasonal festivals, mutating crops, and expanding your farm. And yes, you are able to get married, and it's not a one and done thing. You'll have to proceed with the whole proposal, marriage preparations, like the wedding itself, and even naming your child, that of which will actually grow up as you progress through the game, and so begins another addition to your farming life. Overall, Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life is still able to instill this sense of community between you and the village, as well as providing plenty of daily activities to do. It's currently out on the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and Switch. Fuga, Melodies of Steel 2 is essentially an enhanced version of the first game, with a few new improvements and mechanics. The world of Fuga is populated by anthropomorphic cats and dogs, who dabble in a bunch of robotic technology and aircraft, one of which is called the Tyrannus, which is a massive tank commanded by 12 children. Combat against waves of enemies will take place on the Tyrannus. Each child will take turns using their abilities, with the 3 turrets available, which are a machine gun, a grenade launcher, and a cannon. The main goal is to deplete the enemy's defenses by using the correct weapons. There are multiple ways to pull this off, which is where the strategy comes into play. You can make use of special moves, affinities, status elements, link attacks, and something called hero mode, all of which are available at your disposal. After your battles, you'll be setting off on an expedition on the Tyrannus, on this map with a bunch of nodes, indicating a battle or a shop and so on, so you'll have to plan your journey wisely. You'll also get to choose various dialogue options that can impact your leader skills, which is something very important in battle. Outside of battle, Fuga 2 turns into a bit of a cozy game, letting you interact with other characters and take on some daily life chores. Overall, Fuga Memories of Steel 2 is a pretty charming game, while still incorporating a lot of strategic and management aspects to the combat. The developers have mentioned that it's not necessary to play Fuga 1 to enjoy Fuga 2, so feel free to pick it up. There is currently a PC demo on Steam and Epic Games, so you can give it a try before buying it. Besides that, it is currently out on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and Switch. Disgaea has been a long-running series, and the 7th entry, Disgaea 7, Vows of the Virtueless, continues that tactical and strategic formula in the modern day. The series is well known for letting you pull off some crazy stuff, easily hitting the damage number in the millions if you pull off your strategy right. Disgaea 7's combat takes place on a grid like many tactical JRPGs, and adds a few new mechanics never seen in Disgaea before, one of which is called Jumbification, which will transform your character into giants and lets you attack the entire field. One other goofy mechanic is the ability to carry and throw allies and enemies, letting you reposition as you need. Every character has their own weapon mastery, that of which there are 7 weapons. Keep using these weapons and you'll continue to unlock special skills that have various ranges, AoE effects, and so on. Every character also has access to magic spells of various elements, which can be used to exploit enemy weaknesses or target distant enemies as part of your strategy. There are a whopping 45 unique classes to choose from, all of which can be leveled to level 9999. So this level of power scaling is rarely seen in other JRPGs, which really makes the Disgaea series something unique and satisfying to play. You can create your party with whatever style suits you, like having an all-girls team, a full preenie team, a solo team, and so many more playstyles. Going in depth on all the various mechanics and how to hit millions of damage is way beyond the scope of this video, so figuring it out yourself is part of the fun. Disgaea 7 Vows of the Virtueless is out on the PS4, PS5, PC, and Switch. With the first Octopath Traveler taking the gaming scene by storm with its new and shiny graphics, Octopath Traveler 2 continues that legacy with a bunch of changes. Octopath Traveler 2 has Octopaths to travel, where you meet 8 travelers from different regions across the world. And as a side note, these are not the same characters from the first game. Each character has their own motivations and stories, and you'll witness everyone travel across the world, setting off on their journey. New to the second game is something called Crossed Paths, where the stories of 2 characters will intersect. Each of the 8 characters possess unique skills, and that's where the flashiest part of Octopath Traveler comes into play. The turn-based combat is extremely satisfying. Enemies can be broken after dealing enough hits, causing them to be vulnerable and take HP damage. But this only happens when attacking with the right effective attack type, which means you have to exploit weaknesses to win your battles. Also, there's a super satisfying boost mechanic that will multiply the number of hits you do, so boosting at the right moment can really speed up the combat. But a new addition to the second game is something called Latent Powers, which are very special and powerful abilities. Overall, Octopath Traveler 2 is a nice continuation of the Octopath Traveler formula, with super flashy and satisfying combat mechanics. It is currently out on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and Switch. And that wraps up our list for the best JRPGs of 2023. Of course, a lot of people were focused on 2024's JRPGs, so which 2023 JRPG do you think everyone should play? Let us know. Don't forget to subscribe for more future videos just like this one, and also Happy New Year!